Right now, let's shift to the NFL. We're down to our final set of division-by-division previews for the 2019 NFL season as we take a closer look at the AFC and NFC West divisions. We begin with the NFC this week, where the reigning NFC West champions are also the reigning NFC champions. Los Angeles Rams beat the New Orleans Saints in a controversial conference championship game last year before falling 13-3 to the New England Patriots in Super Bowl 53. Seattle Seahawks hit the 10-win mark last year, while the San Francisco 49ers and Arizona Cardinals combined to go just 7-25. Taylor, how good will the Rams be in 2019, and can anyone challenge them in the West or even in the NFC this year?
Yeah, I think they're going to take a step back. I was really into them last year. They almost pulled it off, but there are major question marks with Todd Gurley. I don't know what's going on with that knee tendonitis situation, but it sounds pretty bad. And, if he's not operating at full capacity, I'm not super convinced that running game is going to be anything special. Jared Goff is still fairly inconsistent. I still think they'll win the division just because the division's relatively weak. But I think if anyone comes to claim it instead of them, I think it's San Francisco. I'd take them at plus 375 over Seattle at plus 300. I think Seattle's just thin. Seattle's a one-man team. They have a brand-new receiving core. They won 10 games last year and got, smacked in the playoffs by Dallas. So I don't think they're going to, put another 10-win season together. So I like Jimmy G. I like the Niners. If you have a sleeper, I think it's them.
What? Did you just not watch the Niners on Monday Night Football? Jimmy,
no, I did not.
Atrocious. He had a 0.0 rating. 0.0
in a preseason game.
He was terrible.
Says the guy whose team is Josh Allen and thinks the Bills are going to roll their way to the Super Bowl.
He didn't even know what he was doing out there. The only completion he had was to Denver. It was terrible. Listen, you say Seattle has new receivers. Name the Niners receivers. Two of them are rookies. Seattle at least returns Brown and Lockett. Although Baldwin's not there anymore, Lockett's going to be a stud. He almost had 1,000 receiving yards last year, more than anybody on the Niners. They had the number one rushing offense last year, way better than the 49ers did. Can you even name who's going to start for the Niners?
What?
It might be Coleman. It might be Breida. It might be whatever the third-string running back this year. McKinnon's not even going to return for a while. He's still not even 100% healthy yet. It's like they have so many question marks on both sides of the ball. Both sides. Seattle comes in with the least amount of question marks on either side of the ball. Improved offensive line. Improved defensive line. Same solid secondary that they had last year. They're one season better than they were last year. I'm not saying they're going to win the division, but they're the team that's going to compete the most with the Rams. The Rams, I do agree, they're going to take a little bit of a step back. I'm concerned about Todd Gurley as well, although I think Henderson and some of the other running backs they have will pick up the slack for Gurley. Defensively, I'm not sure they're going to be as good, losing some of the players they've lost, although they added a few pieces, so they should still be at the top. But come on now. Seattle's clearly the choice. Arizona, write them off. The Niners, forget about it. It's going to be the Seahawks, strong defense, the best home field advantage in pretty much all of the NFL, especially the NFC West. Come on, man.
I've never seen Rick so against a Northern California team.
I hate the Niners. Never liked the Niners and their freaking Niners.
There's your reasoning.
It will be interesting. Gurley's health is obviously a huge key for the Rams if they're going to even come close. Usually when you see a team that does something like that, what the performance they put on in the Super Bowl, it immediately gets followed by some kind of lull. So getting out of it is going to be the key for them. I do think that it's not the strongest division. I'm not really as high on either of the teams that you guys are going on. I'm not a Cardinal. I'm not high on the Cardinals either. I'm just saying it's a weaker division. I'm not saying that I'm picking the Cardinals over the Seahawks or the 49ers, but just that the division itself is a bit weaker. So I think that the Rams may still win the division. I think it may end up being a bit by default, not fully. I think they're still a good team, obviously. But, I don't know if they're going to end up getting all the way back to the Super Bowl. It's hard to see a team that lost the way they did in the Super Bowl, managing to win their way back when so many teams around them in the NFC have either stepped up or are re-energized after the offseason. So as for the AFC's West Division, Los Angeles Chargers tied with the Kansas City Chiefs for the top spot in the division 1 year ago, though the Chiefs got the better playoff seed due to a tiebreaker. Both teams had their postseasons end at the hands of the New England Patriots, with the Chargers losing in round 2, Chiefs falling 37-31 in overtime in the AFC Championship game. That was a thriller to watch. Denver Broncos went 6-10 last year. The Oakland Raiders went 4-12, though each team has made at least one significant addition this offseason as long as they are all in with the teams that they've joined. Rick, who will be the best of this division this year? And will either of the teams that had losing records last year end up stepping it up this year with the additions of Joe Flacco, Antonio Brown?
Hey, well, that's a great way to start this segment. You have to laugh at that, the thought of the Raiders actually being a competitive team. But they do have more talent. They've actually already shown some signs of improvement in preseason. I know it's preseason, but you look for little things, and we've seen some little things out of them. Carr looks re-energized. The running game is going to be better. The offensive line looks solid. They've made some key additions, and this is the key, on defense. And they're looking more aggressive on defense. I like what I've seen in the preseason from the Raiders. I'm not saying they're going to win a division. I don't even know if they're going to make it to 500 or not. They're in a tough division. The Chargers and Chiefs should be competing for playoff spots again. Broncos, I think Flacco is going to make a difference. That defense is going to be better this year. Everybody's healthy on both sides of the ball. They're going to have a strong running game, solid passing attack. They're going to be tough also. But you have to go with the Chiefs here. I like the Chargers. I like their defense. I think they got enough weapons on offense to be, another wild card contender. But come on now. The Chiefs added pieces on defense. Their defense is better. They added more speed on offense with their draft picks. They're going to be explosive. I think Williams, when healthy, adds an element to the running game that they haven't had since someone like Priest Holmes. I think for that system, I like him better than I liked Kareem Hunt from 2 years ago. I wasn't sold on Hunt being as great of a pass catcher or as great of a blocker as Williams is. And then they have Hyde, and they got another running back that they drafted who looks really fast, explosive. Like, they got so much speed now. It's going to be crazy. They should be able to make every game a track meet, and I wouldn't be surprised if they win every game 50-40. They get back to the playoffs. This year they'll have an answer for New England. But we'll save that for later. Kansas City Chiefs are the best of that division. They should win that division. I'd say they go at least 12-4.
Yeah, I think the Chargers are a pretty good value at plus 150, considering they had the same record last year. But it's the Chiefs. I don't really want to bet on them at minus 155 I'm seeing, but it just seems like, a pretty easy call. Tyreek Hill, inexplicably not getting suspended, is obviously good for their on-field prospects. Frank Clark and Tyrann Mathieu, like Rick said, should help the defense quite a bit. I don't think the Melvin Gordon thing hurts the Chargers that much, assuming the holdout continues into the season like we've talked about. I think they have pretty good depth there. But the loss of Derwin James does hurt that defense a lot. He's going to be out for a little while, I think. So I don't hate the value on them, but I can't take Denver. I can't take Oakland. So I think it's the Chiefs, but there's not much betting value anywhere aside from LA at plus 150, just as like a total flyer.
Yeah, I think that even though they had the same records last year, I think that if you were looking at it, I thought Kansas City was the better team between the two. And I would, with the changes for this offseason, I do think that at the very least, Melvin Gordon's holdout with the Chargers does add at least the slightest bit of uncertainty. Even if they've got the depth, going from 1 to 2 or losing one big piece of that depth, even for a game, could be impactful. You never know when you're going to need it. And if you lose your number 2 and your number 1 is holding out, you're suddenly at number 3. So that depth comes into play quickly if they end up with any kind of injury situation. I think Kansas City's the best team in that division. I think they're probably the best team outside of the Patriots in the AFC. I was really hoping they were going to be in the Super Bowl last year because they were so exciting against the Rams in the regular season. And that a rematch of that had to have been a better, more entertaining outcome than the Super Bowl we ended up with. But the Chiefs in that game, and this is something to remember, is that it went to overtime because New England forced overtime. And I don't remember the exact circumstances of it, but Kansas City had that game in regulation and just completely blew it at the very end. And then the Patriots just went right down the field to score immediately in overtime. So this Chiefs team last year's Chiefs team was on par with the New England Patriots. And if you're on par with the New England Patriots, to me, that makes you a Super Bowl contender. So I'd ask, between the NFC West and AFC West, is there a team or are there teams that you think might legitimately challenge for a spot in Super Bowl 54, Taylor?
It's definitely Kansas City, just for all the reasons we've been talking about. The AFC also, I think, is weaker than the NFC, so it's tough to see the Rams breaking through again. I just don't think it's very likely we see back-to-back NFC champions like that. So Kansas City, if anybody, the Chargers, I guess, have an okay chance. You can put them on par with teams like Indianapolis and maybe Pittsburgh, I think, which is probably third or fourth in the entire AFC. So just because of that, I think they're a viable bet, but the smart money's on the Chiefs, and that's definitely what I would side with.
Rick, 49ers to the Super Bowl?
Maybe in a decade. We'll see when they get a new franchise quarterback. Anyhow, with that said, the Chiefs are probably 1B to the Patriots 1A in the AFC. And in the NFC, I would think the Rams, I would say the Bears, the Saints, and even possibly the Vikings are all going to compete with the Rams for one of the top spots in the NFC. And once they get into the playoffs, I think it comes down to who has home field advantage. I think that'll be a difference. So you have to give the edge to the Chiefs to have a better shot at getting to the Super Bowl. But I wouldn't quite write off the Rams just yet. That offense is still enough to and they have the best defensive player in the league. So, and they still have good corners, and they got a pass rush. Like, they still have enough to contend in the NFC. It's just they're closer to the pack than Kansas City is to the rest of the AFC. Like Taylor was saying, the Colts, Steelers, Buffalo, Chargers, stuff like that.
Sneaking that in there.
But he thought you wouldn't notice, so he was just like, really quick. Just under my brother.
Buffalo.
Buffalo. Moving on now. I hope you enjoyed that segment from the Odds On Favorites podcast. If you did, there's plenty more where that came from. Click on the link on your screen now to be taken to the complete podcast from this week, or check out the channel to find the other individual segments. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the Odds On Favorites YouTube channel for plenty more sports and sports betting picks, tips, and how-to guides.